All right, Lex and Pete show. I guess this is going into week three. Are we going into week three?
Week four.
We're going into week four. That's right. We're going into week four. We were gonna come on. We were gonna talk about the matchups, do the reviews, do the previews, all that stuff. But we realized after some of the news that broke today, nobody gives a shit. So we got McMorrow on to talk about the big news that broke. We got Pete here as always. But first, we'll start with a word from both of our sponsors, starting with, as always, Sundog Multimedia. Sundog is an online communication and social media company. What started as a personal tool has since evolved into something much bigger, allowing users to communicate, research, and discover things that impact their lives and daily decisions. Sundog will collaborate with you to build and execute a modern yet nimble social media strategy by utilizing innovative and traditional media principles. Sundog is also a proud supporter of the Stop Soldier Suicide Foundation. You can follow them on Instagram at sundog_multimedia. That's Instagram at sundog_multimedia. Brains, brawn, and true professionalism. That's easy peasy moving and service. Muscle for hire, moving, assembly, errands, you name it, they will do it. Easy peasy is a multi-service team. If you need something, just ask. Boys, so we are here, and as I said in the introduction, we are here to talk about one thing, or I guess you could say three things only. Three big trades went down. I think it's something that really the whole league has been waiting on. It's been, when is McMorrow going to fully commit to this rebuild? And I think that question was answered today. I think that we finally got it. He got rid of all his old running backs, traded away a young wide receiver, got a lot of first-round picks. Before we get into any of it, let's start with our guest, McMorrow. You don't have to give away too much. Of course, we're going to go trade by trade, but how are you feeling? If you give maybe like one or two words about how you're feeling based off of the trades that you made today.
First off, the pleasure. Thank you guys for having me on the show. Big fan. Alex, nice being you. A little uneasy. It's at first it was uneasy, having to commit to this. I knew it was coming. I think we've all seen it coming kind of for years now. This was a topic of discussion last year. And, it just felt like this was the right time to do it. And now that I did it, it kind of feels a little free. Like, respectfully, I don't care about winning. And I think it's just pretty cool to ride out the clock, focus on some new guys, get some hype. And, looking at the team now, we can talk about it later, but I've just been a little bit hesitant. Did I give away too much, or could I have retooled and kept it young by selling these old guys with 2 out of the 3 trades I did? So we can talk about that when those come around. But excited to be on the show and talk about it.
Pete, you also made a trade today. How are you feeling about that? You feeling good? You feeling optimistic? You feel pumped up?
Yeah, first of all, it's just great to have McMorrow on the program. A historic guest in LP show history. Currently, the number 2 most watched episode in LP show history is the last McMorrow feature. So you could call him one of our featured guests, second in views. Like, the guy puts up numbers. I wrote in the league chat today. So it's just great to have McMorrow on my computer screen here. And then, yes, I was a part of the big sell today. Very happy with my return. And I think we're going to deep dive into it. But right now, my vibes are up and I'm feeling good.
All right, let's just get into these trades. We'll start with, as I said, we're going to go in order of how they were accepted, but then we can kind of discuss them however we want. But the very first trade that went down was trade 1 that was with Wallace. Wallace got Derrick Henry, Dalvin Cook, and Pete's 2025 third. McMorrow got Rashad Penny, Gardner Minshew, the Bussy Boys 25 first, and his own 24 second. Trade 2 is with Go Tigers. That's Mikey Bowen and Josh Winsper. Go Tigers received Ezekiel Elliott. They got their own 24 first, and they got their 25, or they got McMorrow's 25 second. McMorrow got the Go Tigers 25 first, the Go Tigers 26 first, as well as the Go Tigers 26 third. Trade 3, and I think that this is kind of the headliner here, right? It's a 3-team trade with the Bussy Boys and Slippery Pete. The Bussy Boys got Tony Pollard. They also got Slippery Pete's 24 third. Slippery Pete got Jackson Smith Najigba. He also got his own 24 first. And McMorrow got 4 firsts. He got Big Brain's 24 first. He got his own 24 first. He got the Strokers 25 first. And he got the Zits 26 first. Where do we want to start? McMorrow, you are the guest. You are the star of tonight's show. Which trade do you want to start with?
Let's talk about the Derrick Henry one first.
I like that idea too. I figured maybe we can start with these two, maybe smaller ones, and then we can wrap it up with the big 3-teamer. So yeah, let's go ahead. Let's start with the Derrick Henry one, trade one. That's with Wallace. So Wallace got Derrick Henry, Dalvin Cook, and Pete's 25 third. As I said, McMorrow got Penny, Minshew, the Bussy Boys 25 first, McMorrow's 24 second. Do you maybe want to take us behind the curtain a little bit? Just tell us, what was your mindset? Because I think you were talking about how it's kind of been years in the making, and you said how we were talking about it last year. I'd even say that we were talking about it even starting in year one when you won the league, because we were looking at your team's makeup and we were saying, how long is this going to ride out? How long is he going to be able to ride this running back wave, right? I think you used to be the running back factory before we were calling him that, right?
Yeah.
So I think that we were looking at that. We were looking at the age of those running backs. We were thinking about the the shelf life for running backs. And even back then, we were kind of starting the clock on you and seeing how long you could ride it to success before kind of falling off. So how did it really feel to dive into this and really trade away 2 of those cornerstones for your franchise so far?
Yeah, running in the group chat, I did put a little essay out there saying thank you for Derrick Henry to start it. It was a 3rd-round startup pick. Won me the league that year. It was a snowy game, I believe, in Green Bay, and I needed a couple points against Zach Bowen in the championship, who had Michael Gallup, who went off in the 4 o'clock games. I had Derrick Henry that night game. It's just a core memory. It's like things like this I'll always remember, and you kind of get attached to it. But even talking about it last year, I believe I had an offer that we were talking about on the show when it was why didn't I sell, and it was Ayuk, Javonte Williams, and a first for maybe the combination of the 2 of them, if my memory is correct.
I think it was McLaurin. I think it was Terry McLaurin, Javonte Williams, and then some type of pick package as well.
But that was for the 2 of them.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that package looks a little bit better now, but I'm content with the package I got now. It's not like much fell off from that package to this package,
Yeah. Yeah. And I believe that playoff run, I think you might have won. You played 2 games, right? I think you might have gotten the top seed. I think you won by like a combined like less than a point, or maybe like less than a point and a half. It was an insane run. I remember I was with Bowen watching that. I think it was Titans Packers, right? And you were saying snowy game, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I was with Bowen that night, and I think Derrick Henry went out for like 1 drive too many. Like he didn't have to go out for that drive.
No, the game was Tannehill. Was it Tannehill? Yeah, Tannehill fucked up a snap. Green Bay took it back, and we're like, all right, this game's over. There's no need to run Derrick Henry. It's 1 more drive, and that was it. Just needed a couple more yards on it.
So, Pete, what's your reaction to this trade? Because, like I said, this has kind of been the hot button issue. McMorrow trading away these running backs. He finally did it, and this one was, it was 2 of the 3 really that he started with. What's your reaction? How do you feel about the return that he got?
I think this is my favorite trade of the 3 for McMorrow. At first, I see Derrick Henry on the screen, and I'm like, oh, Wall says Derrick Henry. Like that's a contender move. But the more I dig into it, I think I'd learned in the last 2 hours that I'm not a Derrick Henry guy anymore. The reason why I like this trade the most is I think McMorrow got the most he could possibly get for these 2 assets that no longer mean anything to him, right? So Dalvin Cook, what do you think you could have got Dalvin Cook for last year? If you sold him Dalvin Cook last year, you probably could get a first, right? Maybe a first and a second.
As like a deadline deal, I'd say for sure, at least like a first, whether it was a future first, a late first, something like that, yeah.
Then he goes to the Jets. He falls off a cliff. He's not getting the snap share anymore. I think getting a 24-second, his own 24-second, which is probably a 14th, 15th overall pick for Dalvin Cook, is a great return. I don't think you can get anything more for Dalvin Cook than a 14th overall pick. And you look at Henry, you get a 25 first, and it's a late 25 first with Simcoe, but it's still a first. And I don't think anyone's paying a 24 first for Derrick Henry. I don't think, at least with the first numbers he's put up in the first 3 weeks, I don't think anyone's paying a 24 first for Derrick Henry. So a 25 first feels like the max he could get for him. And then the more I took the curtain back on Henry, the more I was kind of out of. He's contracted through 2025. This year, if they cut Derrick Henry, been a $20 million dead cap hit. Next year, if they cut him or trade him, it goes down to a $4 million cap hit, which is nothing in terms of cap hit for the NFL team. So I'm looking at Derrick Henry. I was digging into the contract. I don't think he's on the Titans last year or this next year. I don't think he's on Titans next year. Late in the season last year, I remember there was like rumors of him getting traded to the Eagles. I feel like I remember that.
Yep.
And the more I pulled it back, he's got 51 attempts this year in a 3-week span, a 48% snap share, a 71% snap share, and a 38% snap share. He wasn't below 90 in any single week the last decade. So like they're clearly slowing him down. It's early in the season. They're trying to protect him from injury. Maybe he picks up later in the year, but I don't think he's on this team next year. And I think we could see Derrick Henry fall off the cliff or become a backup or maybe a lesser role like we saw Cook from last year to this year. So I do think McMorrow got the best out of Henry that he could have at the time. And it was only going to go down from here. And the same thing, he got the best he could have out of Cook for the time. So for me, this trade alone was a straight win for McMorrow across the board.
Yeah, I agree. And just because we always said that, McMorrow should have traded him earlier. And of course, hindsight's always 2020. We look back at that deal that he was offered last year. And it's like, well, yeah, like knowing what we know now, of course he should have taken that. But, at the same time, that doesn't mean that he can't still get wins here and still get great value for what the situation is. And I agree. I mean, just getting a first, because I view it as kind of like the first, and then Penny and Minshew was like the filler maybe for Derrick Henry, and then getting that second for Cook. And it's like, yeah, I mean, I think that those are good splits right there. I mean, to be honest, I understand that Wallace has Breece Hall, but like, I don't really see why he would want to go after Dalvin Cook anyways. I guess he viewed it as so cheap that it's worth it, but he's been playing like shit. That offensive line is terrible. I don't think it's worth going after. And yeah, I mean, McMorrow, tell us maybe how you were feeling about those players as well. But I agree with everything Pete said about Derrick Henry too. I mean, he looks like he's slowing down. I mean, it could be something where maybe they're just saving him for later in the season. We know that he's a player that gets better as the game goes on, as the season goes on, as he kind of takes on that contact. He outlasts a lot of people. But yeah, I mean, I feel like we're getting into the twilight of his career as well. So, I mean, I think getting a first in this deal is a great side for you. I really like your side. I think it's a good move for Wallace as a team trying to make a push. But, I am curious how these running backs are going to age throughout the season.
Yeah, so I think two things about Derrick Henry. The first one is I'm sure everyone's X timeline now is all fantasy football with all analysts and nerds who put out there. You got to pick up Tajay Spears. He's been getting more percent of the snaps, so snaps are going up. He's getting Derrick Henry's carries are going down. Blah, blah, blah. I don't know how much I'm buying into that hype, but that kind of like is like in the back of my mind. But also in the back of my mind is week 15 and week 17 gets the Texans. And we know what that means. Like that's just like if you make it there, what's that, 202? Basically guaranteed.
Yeah, he's guaranteed to get multiple touchdowns, like 150 yards at least. Yeah, all that
so
stuff.
I mean, Wallace's team is good enough to get that far, and I think that could be the kicker that sends him over the hump.
Yeah, and a lot of times, if you can get if you get a performance like that out of somebody in the playoffs, like that's going to carry you. So, yeah, I mean, like totally, that's like the type of stuff that like Cinderella runs are built off of, right? Like, oh, I'll never forget when Derrick Henry had, for the final week in the championship week or whatever like that, he played the Texans, he gave me 45 points, anything like that. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's good to look ahead at that schedule as well. But yeah, I mean, I think that it's it could be a win-win. I think that you got great value. And that's to be seen if it ends up being worth it for Wallace or not. But I do think that it's a good play for him.
My last question on this trade I had written down. Wallace is currently 6th in points for, right on the playoff bubble. He was right on the playoff bubble last year. We kind of pegged him as a team that's next up next year. Like, sure, he'll flirt with the playoff bubble this year, but next year is really his year where he becomes a contender. Does this trade now make him a contender? Because for me, like, Derrick Henry's got 1 year this year in his prime. That's what I'm saying. So to me, this is Wallace putting his like flag in the ground, like, hey, I'm at the table this year. I'm going to compete this year.
Yeah, I mean, I think next week, I think the tiers are really going to get shaken up. I think that Simcoe, of course, being part of these trades, he made a really good move. He pretty much directly addressed the issue that we had with his team when we were tiering him. And then Wallace is making that thing. I mean, we were talking about it, especially with Breece Hall being injured. His running backs were kind of holding him back this year, but I think that he just made a move that could potentially, get him over that hump. So I think for sure, I mean, I think being at 6th in points right now and making that move can only be good for him. So I think that definitely improves his playoff odds. And then it's to be seen, how that plays out when he actually gets there.
Yeah.
But all right, we're ready to move on to the second one.
Let's do it.
All right, trade number 2. So we're just going to go in order of how they were accepted anyways. This is with Go Tigers. So I'm curious if you're working more with Michael Bowen, if you're working more with Josh Winsper. We know that he's a very active owner in this league. But one more time, we'll go over the trade. Go Tigers receive Zeke Elliott, their own 24 first, and McMorrow's 25 second. McMorrow got Go Tigers 25 and 26 first, as well as their 26th third. I'll start it off by just saying, I think this, I don't know, because I mean, spoiler alert, I liked all 3 of these trades for McMorrow. I thought he made great moves. As I was saying, on the last trade, there could be the discussion of, should he have done it earlier? Should he have done it now? But all that point is moot. All it comes down to is, what type of value did he get out of it? I thought he got great value out of all 3 of these trades. Yeah. I mean, yes, he did send back Mikey's own 24 first. But I think that could be a strategic move. Maybe you can take us behind the curtain on that one as well. I think maybe investing more in the downfall of Go Tigers further down the road could be the better move. But I think getting this type of value, getting 2 firsts in a trade where you're getting rid of Zeke Elliott, I think is a fantastic move. Before we get to McMorrow, Pete, how are you feeling about it?
Yeah, and this one is very close to the other one. I love this trade for McMorrow too. Zeke, I'm not even considering Zeke really a significant piece in this trade. I'm not even. Is he he's planning on starting Zeke, or he's planning on starting Zeke over Jaylen Warren now to have Zeke and
I guess so, because he did put Warren on the block too. So I think his plan is that Warren just won't even be around soon.
Yeah, so I'm barely even considering Zeke a piece of this trade, and neither the third either. So really, for me, this one is Mikey giving his own 25 and his own 26 first, and getting his own 24 first, and then a 25 second for McMorrow, which is likely, again, a top 14, 15th overall pick in 2025. But for me, this trade, I don't hate the trade. I feel like there was a lot of negative feedback against Mikey when this trade went down, because on the surface, it just looks like 2 firsts for 1 first and a second. But it's not crazy to trade a 25 first and 26 first to get back in the 21st round. So from a value standpoint, I don't think it was a crazy bad trade for anyone. I think it was just kind of a equal trade on both sides from a value standpoint. But that being said, I absolutely hate this trade for Mikey's team. This trade for him, he seems now content with his garbage running back room, right? So it's Zeke. It does nothing for him, but I guess he starts now as Zeke and Najee Harris. Running back room.
Yeah, I will say, I guess maybe one argument for his running backs is that he kind of diversifies the backfield a little bit instead of just relying on the two-headed Steelers attack. He at least gets something from a different team. I mean, of course, Zeke is still the RB2 in New England, but at least he gets something to mix it up. So it's if the Steelers get shut down, he doesn't get totally fucked. I guess that maybe that's his mindset.
And then I guess his running back, I'm assuming he's going to be taking a running back with his own 24 first in this year's draft. That's his plan for his running back room. If he does that, he fills out a decent starting roster, probably on the fringe of making the playoffs, but no depth whatsoever. No first-round picks past 2024 to address that depth. Nothing to add. And like I said last week, I still think Justin Fields is a question mark. He's got Russell Wilson. Maybe he can do something there, but that's kind of how I felt about this trade. Equal for value. I don't think it's crazy bad for either team. I think it's good for McMorrow, but it's bad for Mikey long-term. And that's why, like you said, KB, McMorrow's getting a 25, 26 Mikey. That could be a good investment.
Yeah, and before we give it to McMorrow, I will. Yeah, I guess in theory, right? It helps Mikey in the short term with getting him, right, helping address his running back room, while also giving him his first as kind of an emergency exit. So if shit really does go south, he can kind of start selling off and just tanking and trying to get that as good a pick as possible. So I guess he does keep his options open. But yeah, McMorrow, how are you feeling about getting these two? I mean, am I onto something here with maybe you investing in Mikey's downfall, or do you just feel like it's better to kind of start getting those picks in that draft?
2 things. One, I would never prey on anyone's downfall. I love the league, love everyone in it. Second off, I just found out there was a co-owner of that team today. That was news to me. Actually, getting into the trade now we're talking about it. I know Mikey was coming back for his 24 first for weeks now. This isn't the first time he's asked for it.
Yeah.
And, it kind of does make sense. If it's his way out. And then also the 2 future firsts, he has enough assets on his team and Justin Jefferson, T. Higgins to either come get his first back or, recoup that value somewhere else. So I don't think it's too much against Mikey there. And like you said, getting your own first, if he wants to go tank, he can, because it's there to him now, you know?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I really don't think. I think Pete's analysis was pretty good about it. I
Yeah.
I was more on McMorrow's side just because I like the value that you got out of it. But after thinking through it, I do think that it's a fair trade for Mikey.
Yeah.
Maybe there are some questions about exactly what his plan is, but
Right.
I really don't think there's too much to add. I mean, you guys got anything else on it?
My only question, I don't even think we can answer this question, but we just saw Ryan Robinson go for a 26 first and Kyron Williams go for a 26 first. Mikey's giving a 25 first and a 26 first. You got to think he could have got both those guys and then maybe even some more because he's giving a 25 instead of a 26. So, like, my only thing is, like, why didn't Mikey branch out and see if he could address the running back room in a different way? I guess the answer is he's really invested in his own 24 first, but that just does. I just feel like he could have done a little bit more to add a running back and get a little more for those first round picks.
Yeah, I think that's something I've realized too throughout, these first couple seasons of the league, where I do think that when it comes down to negotiating with different trades, I think that getting your own pick really trumps all, because I think when people commit to that kind of move, they're really focused on kind of getting fate in their own hands and being able to control that. So I guess that really could be the reason why. But yeah, I mean, I do think that sometimes this league does get a little bit of tunnel vision on trades, and instead of shopping them around and saying, well, shit, like, I mean, if this one team is trying to do it, why don't I see? I mean, maybe, like, I'm sure if this player is that hot on the market, like, there must be like 3-4 other teams that might be in on it. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess maybe he was just going after his 24 first. But
right.
All right, we're ready to move on to the piece de resistance, or you got one more thing, McMorrow?
I got one more thing, just jumping back to the first trade about how I got my 24 second back. That you make a good point about wanting your picks back.
Yeah.
I think, I wasn't going to really push for a 24 first for Derek. I'd be okay with a 25 first and then my second back, because I know it'll be in that 14 range.
Yeah, exactly. If that's in that top 15,
I wasn't playing
that's pretty good.
everything to one specific year, and also these three trades going on all at once. I kind of had to juggle my future picks down the road, so I'll spoil it. I have two firsts, 24, 3 and 25, 4 and 26. So I'm kind of spaced down the road, not so much for this year, but if I didn't give Mikey back his first, I wouldn't have those two extras. I would have 3 this year. So I like the sequencing of 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Let's get into the big one. Let's talk about it. So I'm just going to read off what each team got. We can kind of decipher who gave up what as we speak throughout it. But this was the 3-teamer. It was McMorrow, it was the Bussy Boys, and it was Slippery Pete. The Bussy Boys, they got Tony Pollard and Pete's 24 third. Pete got JSN and his own 24 first. So there's somebody else going after their own pick. And then McMorrow got his own 24 first again. Big Brains 24 first, the Strokers 25 first, and the Zits 26 first. Where do we want to start? I don't know, Pete. You got any questions, maybe?
I mean, I think we could just take it like, let's look at it from my view, from Simcoe's view, and then we'll follow up and end it with the headliner McMorrow's view.
We could do that, or we could talk about like how we got to the trade.
Yeah, maybe take
start
us
that way.
Yeah, maybe tell us more about that. Take us behind the scenes. Talk more about how this trade came together. Because as a Friends Who Gamble insider, I did have a little bit of a scoop on this trade, so I knew that it's been in the works for quite some time. So I'm just curious exactly what the group chat was like and kind of how this was going throughout the process.
I'll start with this one. Just going back to last year, every time everyone's been saying me to jump into the rebuild, I kept telling people, push me into it. Like, in my opinion, force me to rebuild.
Yeah.
Like, offer me something. And this was the first of the 3 trades that actually got completed. Then I said, all right, this is locked in. I'm going to go get those other ones. And then we're really going to do it, because I didn't want to give away the 2 young guys without getting rid of the old heads. So I wanted to do it strategically. Somebody for you guys pushed me into this, and I love it. So that was my logic going into it. Pete, you want to take it from your end about what you wanted out of it?
Yeah, I mean, this was a long time coming. My whole thing, I mean, McMorrow, we talk pretty often. Like, I've been asking you when this rebuild's going to happen for years, like literally a year and a half. And then really towards the beginning of this year, I almost checked with you in like every single week, like, hey, is it time to hit that button? Hey, is it time to hit that button? And you were kind of tiptoeing the line, seeing how this year went. And then when I hit you this week with like, hey, I literally just sent you a text, pulse check. Is it time to hit the rebuild button? And I got a more of a response out of you than I ever had before. You really felt motivated. So I was like, hey, Simcoe, this is the time. Let's make a move. Let's put a 3-team together. He's ready. You're ready. I'm ready. We both have draft capital, and he's got the guys we want. Let's make a move. And my big thing was to, one, get to be a part of this move. I always wanted JSN. I wanted to be a part of the sale, of the fire sale. I didn't want to miss the opportunity to be a part of the fire sale. And I also wanted the trade to happen. I wanted the rebuild to happen. I own McMorrow's 25 first. That's kind of the silver lining that really pushed me to get this deal done, is that pick in 25 is now looking like a top 3 pick, which I'm thrilled about. So like, yeah, I mean, that's kind of how it happened. I checked in with McMorrow ever so often for a year and a half, and then weekly this year, leading up to the year, throughout week 1, 2, and 3. And then finally we kind of like saw it coming together, and we put it together in about, I don't know, 3 days of texting. Yeah, that's kind of how it came together.
Yeah.
So I think a big question, I think something that a lot of people were maybe surprised about McMorrow was you trading JSN, right? Because you used I believe the 6th overall pick on him. We're 3 weeks into the season, going into week 4 now, and you're already moving on from him. So was it a performance issue? Was it maybe he just wasn't the right fit for your team? Or was it straight up just the value that you were getting for him that led to you trading him so early into his career?
Yeah, so part of it, I was going to say something about the other two that related to this one. Sorry. Part of it was I saw that Pete picked up CD Lamb in the offseason for I believe it was 2 first-round picks.
Yep.
If I could already capitalize on JSN for 2 first-round picks, I don't recall what those picks were in your deal.
It was at the deadline 2 picks for the upcoming draft. So more valuable. Yeah, more valuable.
Where did they finish?
1-4, which turned into Jameer, or 1-5, which turned into Jameer Gibbs, and 1-7 or 8, which turned into Quentin Johnston.
Okay. So I figured, those 2 for CD Lamb. I already cash in on my JSN. Who knows who those 2 players become if they're 5 and 7 that year, whatever, So I figured I would just take a easy, quick return on it. But also, what I was trying to hint at before, if I didn't do this trade and I did the other ones, where would I be if I still kept on to Pollard and JSN? Who knows?
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, this is a big one. I mean, you got 4 firsts. I think, did you give one up? No, you did not. So you just gave up Pollard, you gave up JSN, and then a 24 third, whatever. And in return, you got 4 firsts. I mean, I kind of want to look at it from Pete's side right now. So Pete, you got JSN, you got your own 24 first. You gave up Big Brain's 24 first. So I would say that it's a projected move up by, at least a spot or 2 in the 24 draft. And you also gave up my 25 first and Bowen's 26 first. How are you feeling? Do you feel like that was an aggressive move to go out and get your guy? I mean, I know this was a guy that you were really big on, going into his final year at Ohio State. Of course, he essentially missed that entire season, and he lost a lot of hype coming off of those bowl games that he played in where he put up like 1,000,000 yards, all that stuff. But, even in the draft, he kind of lost some hype just from, maybe an underwhelming athletic testing, and then also just going like 20th overall or something where, a lot of people were talking about him possibly being a top 10 pick. So it sounds like maybe your love for him has kind of stayed strong, but what was your mindset going into this trade? Because it was an aggressive move for a rookie.
Yeah, I do think I overpaid. I don't think I got JSN at a value because of what he's done the first 3 weeks of the season. So that's really not the angle for me. Everyone knows JSN's not going to pop until next year or even the year after when Lockett's gone. So JSN's a long-term investment. The kid's 21. I love him as a prospect. I still love him now, but I don't need to beat the hammer with that. I do think I overpaid, and I didn't get a value on JSN, but I love it, and I'll tell you why. I gave up the 24, 25, 26 first, and this is like a full circle for me. That 24 first that I got from, or it was LLC 24 first, that was from Sam Howell. 25 first KB, that was from Davis Mills. 26 first Bowen, that was from Kyron Williams. Sam Howell, 3rd round pick. Davis Mills, late 2nd round pick. Kyron Williams, $1 fab. And now I'm turning those 3 guys into JSN and a 24 first for myself next year. So I got to flex that a little bit. That's just savvy. That's just grind. That's 2 a.m. scouring the Reddit, looking for guys to flip later on in the future. So I do think that played a little bit of a mindset with me. Like, I didn't pay much for these first round picks. they are what they're worth now, but I didn't pay much for him, and I kind of wanted to like that kind of devalued him a little bit in my mind, I guess, like mentally. But the way I viewed this is JSN for the 25 first, I think is a win. 24 first for 24 first. I think I'm moving up from a big brain 1.8, 1.12 to 1.5. That's the difference between Zach Charbonnet and Jahmyr Gibbs. Difference between Marvin Mims and Jackson Smith and Jigba. So I view kind of both those solo trades as a win, and then I give the 26 first to make those happen. So it's like JSN for the 25, move up in the 24 draft, and I give the 26 first to make that happen. Maybe that's just me coping with it, but that's kind of what my thinking was. And then the silver lining is that this trade's the first domino to commit McMorrow to the rebuild and make my McMorrow 25 first a top 3 pick. So those 3 things in general of like, hey, I didn't really pay a lot for these firsts. I like the value I'm getting, even if it looks like an overpay right now. And it makes my 25 McMorrow first top 3 pick. That was enough for me to pull the trigger on it and get it done. So I do think it's a little bit overpay, but I'm feeling really good about it.
Yeah, and I think it's just kind of, from the investment mindset, a lot of times it's better to sell at 90% of max value instead of holding out for 100 and never actually seeing that, right? Because you never know if it's actually going to reach that point. So it's better to just cash out. It's the old Bill Belichick, right? It's better to be a year early than a year late. You can trade Richard Seymour now and it might suck for a year, but then all of a sudden when he's maybe a little washed up or something, then maybe it's not worth it. Or if his contract's too big and you can't pay him and you can't get anything for him, then it's not worth holding on to him at all. So I do think it was a good move, especially when you frame it the way that you have. What you acquired all those picks for was very savvy. So credit to you, pat on the back. Let's talk about Simcoe's side really quick. He got Tony Pollard. He got Pete's 25 third. Who gives a shit about the 3rd round pick? He gave up 2 first rounders, right? It's not saying on the app right now which first rounders. It's 2
It was mine and McMorrow. So 2 top 5 picks.
All right. So so he gave up McMorrow and then he gave up yours. So yeah, I mean, it depends on how Slippery Pete's season plays out. I do think that we view him as more on the fringe, so that could end up on either side of that. But I do think that you're, at worst, like the 4th overall pick. I don't think that you're going to drop any lower than that. So yeah, there. And then McMorrow, who has likely entered the draft lottery at this point and should have a good shot at a top pick, I'd say right now, just based off of all the moves today. So it's a pretty pricey pay for a guy like Tony Pollard. Pete, do you have any insight on this? I mean, I know that you guys were both in the group chat. I know Simcoe's talked about how he's not afraid to overpay because he feels like it's his only way to get one of these running backs. What's your thought, though, on what he just gave up to get Pollard?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, you look at Simcoe in general. We've been in this is the 4th year, Friends Who Gamble. Simcoe has only made 1 draft pick in this league since the birth of the league, and that's Terrace Marshall in the late 2nd round. This guy does not make draft picks. He sells picks. So I don't think he was ever planning on taking these picks. They were always in his war chest to add for something this year. And I think Pollard's the perfect piece, right? He's RB4 right now, 3 weeks in. Looks like a top 5 running back this year. Cowboys are absolutely feeding him. And what I'll say is, like, Simcoe watched the tier episode with Amaral last week and was personally offended. Like, he texted me furious that he was ranked with Mikey Bowen in the same tier. Like, he took that personally and then did something about it. He like the same thing as me. Like we saw McMorrow was ready to make this move. He was always going to use those 24 first to add to his roster to make a win now move. And I think Pollard was the perfect piece, perfect timing. He took the running back held tier personally and did something about it.
Yeah, and I think that it's one of those two where it's like how you were saying, you made this trade and it kind of triggered that domino effect for your McMorrow pick that you own. And it's one of those where, yes, he had McMorrow's pick, but if he didn't make this trade, then it wouldn't be as valuable as it is now, yada, 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 all that stuff. So, I mean, of course, if McMorrow were to shop it around, maybe, there would be a similar deal that would, maybe put in the same position. But yeah, it's one of those where he has to view McMorrow's pick as what it is as he holds it, and he can't really think about what it'll become post-trade. So it might suck in the future seeing what that pick turns into. I mean, that pick turns into like Caleb Williams, then, and he doesn't win a championship this year, then maybe Simcoe will have regrets. But like you said, he knows that he has to overpay if he wants to get these running backs. I do feel like a lot of these teams are kind of clutching on to their assets, and you're really going to pry them from everybody's hands. So it's the price he's got to pay. And, I mean, if it's the move that puts you over the top to win a championship, then, there really is no limit to what you can spend. So we got any other reactions? I mean, I got one more question at least, but we got anything else to say about the returns on this trade?
I got one thing just to chime in real quick. 8:25-ish. I got a hard stop. I got to pick up McQueen from the train. Gets in at 8:28. I got to sprint over there. I'm trying to give you as much time as I can.
All right, so let's wrap it up with this question then. So
let's wrap it up.
I'm looking at it now. You got your own first in 24. You got Big Brains 24 first. In 25, you got Go Tigers. You got the Strokers. You got the Bussy Boys. And then in 26, you got your own pick, Go Tigers, Slippery Pete, and the Zits. Maybe just short term with the 2024 picks. What's kind of right now? What's your maybe outlook on that draft? Do you have any targets? Do you think you're going to be going after a quarterback? Do you think you're maybe going to be looking at receivers and trying to build a long-term core like that? And waiting on the running backs, or do you have your eyes on anything right now, or are you still kind of just playing it by ear and gonna wait and see how it plays out?
Yeah, I haven't actually drafted a quarterback yet. The only one I traded for was Carson Wentz, and I drafted Kirk and Daniel Jones in the startup draft. I still have them, so I think at some point I will need to get another quarterback. Hopefully, my pick will be top 2. Hopefully, Kirk Cousins is also traded away from my team. I'm not so sure on Daniel Jones. I feel like he could be a piece I'd want to hold maybe into next year. But Kirk Cousins, I would like to move him as well as some other assets. But who knows? I'm really like I texted Pete right after this. I'm getting kind of worked up because like I want to fucking go all in. Like I have 9 first-round picks. Why can't I build a starting lineup right now? I have Rashad White. I could go buy 3 receivers for 2 firsts. There's 6 firsts right there, and now I got a team again. Fill Mark Andrews, love the quarterbacks, Rashad White, and I'll fill in another running back. Like I have it, but I like the long game. I'm getting worked up, man. I want to.
Yeah, and I mean, I think we've kind of seen it with Pete, and we've even started to see it with Amaral, right? Like, they never hold on to all the picks, right? They never end up making all those. There's always going to be a move that you can make to get a player that you like, because it's not like you don't like anybody in the NFL right now. So opportunities will arise to get certain people, and you might see the chance to get a guy that you want to build your team around, and that's exactly when you wait and then you strike with these picks. So. I mean, I do think that, getting, McMorrow's or getting your own pick there, and then, Big Brain, we'll see how that plays out. Right.
Yeah.
But, I do think that you're going to be able to get, even in the top 3 right now, I think there's Caleb Williams, there's Drake May, and I think Michael Penix is going to be a pretty good pro as well. So I think that you're going to be in a fine position to get any quarterback that you want, that will be at the top of that draft. But I mean, shit, if you're at 3 or 4 and you get stuck with Marvin Harrison Jr. or something to, start building your team around, then I think you're going to be in a good spot. And then you have the picks in 25, and then you have those 26 picks, which could be, a move where, just be thinking out loud, where it's like, if you start filling out that quarterback position, you get your wide receivers in 24, 25, then you can pick up some serious running backs depending on what that class looks like. And all of a sudden you got the wide receivers in years 2 and 3, you got the quarterbacks ready to go. And then we know how those rookie running backs can step in and play. So you put yourself in a really good position. I think that all things considered, like I said, we can have debates until, the cows come home about when you should have started making these trades. But I think in the time that you decided to go all in on it, I think that you got a great return. So, I mean, I got no criticisms of, any of the moves that you made.
Best part is
we got any closing statements before we let McMorrow go?
One more.
Oh yeah. Let's hear it.
Best part is I haven't sold everything yet.
That's true. I mean, you just saw I know what you're looking for Rashad White. I mean, you can still probably get a pretty decent. I mean, I know that 3 Pins is looking for, the virus. They're looking for a quarterback. So I think that you can make a move there.
Big Brain and then, I got them hitting me up. So.
Yeah, and then Daniel Jones is a guy where you can, if you want to keep him and make him your QB2, or I think he'd even be best if he's your QB3, then you probably have a great QB room. But he's also a guy that you can trade and you could probably get a decent return on as well. So I mean, I thought you got a great return, like you said. You still got moves to make. So I think that this was a very clean break for you in starting your new era.
Thank you.
McMorrow, I got one question for you before you leave. You got 2 minutes. Nothing to do with the deal at all, but you have a reputation around this league now that I think is a good time to address. Personally, you and I, we're always on great terms. We talk multiple times a week. I was actually criticized after these trades went through and said it was disgusting how much Pete was simping for McMorrow after this trade. People are saying that I value your team and your gain more than some of my lifelong friends. So I personally do not feel this way, but a
First off,
reputation.
we're lifelong friends moving forward, so
Damn straight. Damn straight. It's 2020. But you have this reputation around the league now of not responding, starting deals, not finishing deals, not answering on time, not negotiating properly, wild asks, wild return. Is there anything you'd like to say to the McMorrow haters out there who are pounding their head against the wall when they attempt to negotiate a trade with you?
The first one I'll say, I know we were talking about this before, and I know KB kind of jumped in a bit on the phone this morning. A lot of people, I think, gained trust in me after these deals. I said, "This is the trade. You accept it in your head. Like, we're done. I'm not shopping them anymore. KB could have came in with 9 first-round picks, and I couldn't do it because that's just how loyal I am to the game.
Hell yeah.
So I think from a responsiveness standpoint, I could be a little bit better. From a negotiating standpoint, sure, I like to, get my thirds and get whatever I can out of it, but I don't know. We can all be better. I could definitely be more responsive, but yeah, I don't know. You can't say I didn't commit to something.
Damn straight.
I will say I guess my only criticism is that I did think that all 3 trades at once was actually kind of underwhelming. I think that it's better to just rip them in real time, because I think just dropping bomb, then letting it kind of simmer, letting people react, and going with another one, I think that that's more entertaining. So I think moving forward, I disagree with the method of saving the trades up and then dropping them all at once. I think giving each one time to breathe is better for content.
But also better for content, but also from my end, let's say Mikey knew what, or let's say Wallace knew what I got for Zeke, maybe he would have renegotiated his side, or one of them wouldn't have liked it because they said, "Oh, you value this guy one way, he's worth this if you were to sub him into that deal," So I wanted to just all
that's
at once.
Fair. That's fair.
I think that's and like I said,
there's plenty of ways to bake a cake. Everybody does it their own way.
Any other deal moving forward, like I'm already into this rebuild, so I'm committed. Like I'll just accept it on the spot. But to get me over the hump all at once, nobody can fuck this up. I just did it myself. So
Yeah. All right. Well, here we go. I guess this really did shift the league quite a bit. So I'm excited to see how things play out for the rest of the season. Then, of course, how your rebuild plays out. So congratulations on your big move.
Thank you.
As always, Lex Lumpkin and Slippery Pete. We will talk to you guys next week.